Good morning. How are you? Oh, it's a bit chilly here this morning. I'm just going to take this off. Whoo! How is everybody? Lovely to see you. Welcome to a new week. It is, I'm just pouring myself a cup of tea. What is it? Is it the 14th? Is it the 15th? Hi, Alicia. Good morning to you, darling. What's the weather like? Is it still light? It is really cold here today. It is like, I don't know, it must be 2 or 3 degrees. It was so cold last night. I had to leave the dogs in the sitting room so they could keep cozy. It's hot where you are. Well, look at you. That's gorgeous. That's lovely to hear that the UK's having some gorgeous weather. Last night, Simon and I, Callie has this sleep app, that she, not sleep apnea, but a sleep app that she can listen to because she sometimes sleep talks. And honestly, we have such a laugh listening back to it. Anyway, Simon and I have been thinking about, having it on our phones for ages. Anyway, last night I downloaded it, put it on my phone, and I clicked it just before we went to, sleep, and switched it off this morning. There are 59 notifications of snoring. Basically, the whole night is snoring. And it's not just Simon. It's me as well. Hilarious. Anyway, highly recommend it. I think it's called the sleep something. But it basically records you while you're sleeping. And you can hear what you're sort of chatting about. Sweaty type heat. Oh, yeah, that's never good. Any menopausal woman out there, it's just like, oh, another layer of heat. Yeah, not easy. Anyway, good morning. I pulled all the cards last night before I went to bed, and I sat with them because I just have a feeling like it really helps me if I pick them the night before. Hi, Colette. It really helps me to pick them the night before, just to let me just sit with them and then sleep on them, because other stuff seems to sort of come through, when I am asleep. So we have got a really interesting week, and as always, I am going to do 3 cards. But you will see that there is a kind of an overarching theme. I've got another couple of decks on the side just in case we need them if something else comes up, because I never know quite what's going to come through as soon as thank you, darling. These are vintage units from my friend Megan, who has a little pop-up store where she sells lots of different things. And these are her mother-in-law's, and they're vintage Indian, because we've got to talk about earrings sometimes. A lot of the time, and they've got little 9-carat gold hoops that she put on. But anyway, love them. Anyway, thank you for that. Right, back to the main event. So the card for the week that we have as the overarching theme is the need card for community. I don't think we see these the right way around too, but basically community. So all aspects of community, and what I've been picking up in terms in my life is how involved we started to get in our own communities. So, Simon has started managing our local hall where we have Pieces Creek Talks, which is an event we run every 2 months, which invites speakers around generally regenerative agriculture and the land. Morning, Nancy. And basically it is, it's also a space for lots of different conversations, really generally about regeneration of us, regeneration of the land, and regeneration of our soul, our spirit. So we've started getting involved in that. I also run a local community thing, looking after all the pests and feral animals in the area. I started that up a couple of years ago after a couple of my goats got killed by wild dogs. And we have had to really monitor them because there've been a lot of packs in our area in Jurassic Park kind of undergrowth. And so I work with an amazing trapper, and it's all very humanely done, in a kind and sort of as best way we can. But it's basically supporting our land and all the indigenous beasts that live on our land, beings that live on our land. And so these are things that I've gotten involved in my local community. And I think, you know, this is a community for me as well. You are my community. This is how I share myself. And as a result, I've attracted, you know, new people into my life because, you know, what I talk about resonates for you. And I think, you know, this community card is really an invitation for us to, you know who our neighbours are. You know, we don't all have to get on. We don't all have to be best friends, but just know who they are. Because I kind of feel like community on the ground is where it's going to be at. And I tell you why. I don't know why, but I was invited to pick 3 cards from the 7th Sphere Lenormand deck. Now, the Lenormand deck is not a deck I know particularly well. So I'm just going to put that out. But I picked 3 cards, okay? And these are the 3 I picked. I picked the mice, okay? I picked the bouquet, and I picked the garden, okay? So the mice is generally, you can just even looking at it, to me, it's just all those, you know, it can be those thoughts that go through our head that are not really ours. They're just sort of the collectors, and then we can sort of buy into them and get all worried and end up in rabbit holes and all sorts of, you know, challenging places. But really it also talks to deceit and sort of corruption, okay? And the bouquet is this sort of, it's a very kind of, it's like social pleasantry and niceness, okay? And I'm kind of feeling these together with also this 3rd card, which is the garden. The garden is all about community. It's about community spaces and, all those sort of spaces that we come and gather together. And I'm really feeling like at the moment there is some deceit that's been going on. Deceit and corruption that has been going on. And there's been lots of sort of pleasantries that have been exchanged because nobody has wanted to talk about it. And now we're having these we've created these community spaces, okay, online. The great thing about the internet, online, but also in, you know, in all sorts of groups all over the world, for whatever reasons that we've created them. But a lot of them are because we recognize that sometimes our governments are not working in our best interest. Sometimes some of the systems are not working. In fact, a lot of the time the system is not working in our best interest. It's not heart-centered. Last week I heard just a horrible story of a friend whose mother had been very sick during COVID, had to go into aged care. They hadn't been allowed to see her. I mean, it was just horrible, okay? Just a lack of empathy. I talked about it in my reading last week, okay? And so all these little communities, these little grassroots organizations for all our different communities, you know, there's been sisterhoods coming together, there's been, you know, trans communities, the LGBTQ communities all coming together, non-binary communities, you know, the Black community coming together, you know, Asian community coming together, all these people coming together and then going, you know, they're saying we're not happy with what's going on, and people are just coming out and going, well, we want to support you because we're all about inclusion and equality, and so suddenly we've got all these grassroots movements that are happening underneath this hierarchical structure, which is at its core got quite a lot of corruption in it. Okay, and we've all just been going, yeah, no, lovely, you know, people in power, you know, we're very sort of, you know, oh, hi, how are you? But now there's like these new spaces that have been created, and there's a bit of momentum coming, and it's rocking the boat. So card number 1, card number 1, 2, 3. If you want to pick a card, pick it now. Card number 1 we have the shadow, okay? We have the shadow, and that is coming from the Psychic Tarot by John Holland, okay? And, well, I talk about the shadow a lot, but I kind of feel that the shadow is rising, okay? And when the shadow rises, it rises through us too. So all the bits and pieces that we kind of go, oh, that's not me. Or, yeah, I wish I hadn't done that. All rises up for us to take a look at. Which is why we can kind of turn on the news, or we can see things and go, oh my God, this is looking really, really messy. What's been going on? At some level, we know it's been going on, okay? We know it's been going on. But it's now out in our communities, and we're talking about it. And this, if you've picked card number 1, this is an invitation to do some shadow work this week. And shadow work is never easy. And when you do shadow work, you better have your kind, generous, beautiful voices and self-compassionate voices on board as well. When you take responsibility for parts of yourself that might have, not behaved in, your best way. You wish you'd done it better. You wish you'd done it differently. And so you go back in and you forgive yourself and you go, yeah, that wasn't my best self that showed up there. I forgive myself for that. I was doing the best I could under the circumstances. If I'd known what I know now, I wouldn't be doing it. I wouldn't have done it, but I did it. So for all the times, you've maybe, drunk too much and said something you wish you hadn't said, or you've denied somebody their experience, or you've lashed out at your children because you're tired and emotional, all of that stuff. It's about shoring up forgiveness for yourself and going, I wish it had been different, but it wasn't. I did it. And I'm sorry I did it. I need to forgive myself for this. Integrate that part, because that part of you, like maybe who lashed out and shouted at your child, okay? Who get angry and frustrated when you're tired and emotional, okay? The light attribute to that energy is that you are outspoken. You can speak up for yourself, okay? But what you realize is that when you're tired and emotional, it's not the best time to do it, okay? So you need to find a space, like I have here. You lock yourself in your space. You tell the people that you love, right now I am feeling gnarly, I am feeling pissed off, and I am feeling ready for a fight. So I need to protect you, okay? I need to protect you. So if you could just stay that side of the door, while I just allow myself to feel all the feelings that I'm feeling, and just be with them and be kind to myself, okay? And when you do that, there is a self-trust that you build that you cannot build anywhere else but in communion with yourself, okay? And with all the things that need to be in here with you. For me, I've always got a bit of chai tea on the go, cozy blankets, a candle, some sort of, nice, generous, lovely, beautiful music, do that beautiful internal work. I'm going to talk a bit about that just at the end. But when you're doing shadow work, there's a lot of information on the internet. Find something that resonates for you. I do it a lot personally, and I do it a lot with my clients. So, if you need some support there, again, reach out, and I'm very happy to give you a hand there. So I feel like that shadow work that you do is also going to be helping the collective shadow, okay? So the community shadow. Every piece of work we do on ourselves helps the outside, okay? Everything that we do. So just know that when you do this work, it's an act of service to humanity. It is an act of service to humanity. Every time you love parts of yourself you would rather not look at, you are helping humanity look at some of its gnarly pointed edges too. Okay, so card number 1, shadow for shadow work this week. Card number 2, we actually have 2 cards. One, I picked one, and as I picked one, the other one flew out the deck. Okay, so the deck that I'm using for here is the Elemental Oracle by Stacey Demarco. And the card that I got first is air. Communication. I always think air is communication. Okay. And mountain, clarity. Air also is space. And I slightly feel it relates to also, the shadow. It's like we need space in order to get clarity. Okay. And I did a video, when did I do it? A couple of days ago. I posted it up on YouTube. It's not on here. And it's basically all about kind of victimhood and domination, that power over dynamic, and moving into a sense of what did I call it? What did I call it? Something and power with and belonging. I can't remember what I called it, but basically, it's about the importance when you're in that collective sort of arena. You're picking up everybody else's stuff, and when you're fitting in, you're kind of picking up everybody else's stuff. You need to step away from the dominant paradigm to find out who you are, and that sometimes can mean stepping away from friendships. It can mean stepping away from not forever, but just for a period of time, so you get really clear about who you are. I often think if you're feeling a bit lost and confused, you're in the cultural kind of soup. And not the good one either. Okay, you're in that cultural soup. And in order to kind of get clear about who you are, you need space. Okay, you need clear communication with something bigger than you. If you've got a spiritual practice, this is when it comes in, your meditation. You need to call in a bigger power than you, the beloved, the divine, God, whatever it is that you call it, okay? Bring it in and create space for it. And in order to get clarity on who you are, because we can over-identify with all the roles we play in life, okay? And we are so much bigger than all of those. So much bigger than all of those. So number 2, I'm just going to read very quickly what Stacey says. But number 2, really create some space this week, okay, for some clarity on who you are in a slightly deeper way, okay? Not in all those sort of, superficial kind of role-playing ways, but much deeper than that. Who are you? Who are you? I am the one that, watches the bird land on a branch. That's not a role, is it? It's not a role. Okay, air. Be flexible yet grounded. Allow yourself free thought. Move and choose. Find your freedom. Use your voice resourcefully. Stand up for what you believe and be mindful of the way you communicate. That too, okay? And I feel that kind of, again, is, there's a thread coming from that and the shadow. It's saying here, the element of air has always been associated with movement and the higher spirits, a cleansing element that enables us to fly free and allow our minds to travel. So I really feel that there's just that invitation to go within, use your breath, use music, use nature, come within and find the clarity, some clarity on the depth of who you are. The mountain, there is an advantage to looking at things from a higher perspective. Get out of the cultural soup. Go up there, okay? You are too close to something to see it properly and clearly. Take the high road, look at the big picture. Are you making too big a deal of something? Take the high road, take the low road. Take the high road. Get some perspective. And the best way to get perspective is to step out of the forest. Phone a friend even. You know, that's often something that is helpful. Or, you know, reach out to me. I've just put in, I've not been doing any readings at all for a very long time. I've just started doing some with some of my old private clients. But I have opened it up. I've not put it on my website yet, but it is on, it is through my link in my bio. I've got some reading openings where, you know, if you're just needing a lens to pull out and some perspective, that's where these oracle cards can really support you. Really support you. So this week for you, it's like, you can't see the wood for the trees. Get some perspective. Okay, go for a walk. Clear your head. Get out of the spaces that you normally inhabit. Do something different. Brain retraining. In brain retraining, it's all about do something different. You know, break the pattern by just, you know, changing direction and just doing something very different. It just almost sends a signal to your brain. Okay, we're moving out of this, you know, treading water, and we're gonna swim off. We're gonna get out the pool and we're gonna go and, you know, go and sit outside on the grass and just look at the clouds. Okay, so this week, number 2, you really are being asked to communicate with yourself, I feel, in a slightly different way. Create the space for you to commune with a higher power and find clarity. Find clarity of maybe what your next step is with whatever is going on in your life. Okay, so that's card number 2. Card number 3, the dragons wanted to come out. The dragons from Diana Cooper wanted to come out, and we've had this dragon before, so it's so interesting that it's come back in. But basically we have the air and water dragon, which is quite interesting because air and water, so air is all about communication, water is all about kind of our emotions, and you know, the shadow work will always be bringing up emotions. So I kind of feel like we're getting protection and support from the air and water dragon. But if you've picked this card, it's about trusting your intuition and developing your psychic abilities. Be open to enlightenment and express your inner song. So here's what I'm picking up in the collective from that, is that there is quite a lot that I feel is going to be coming out. More stuff is going to be coming out in our mainstream media about stuff that's been going on. I don't know what it's going to be, but you know, I can hazard a guess. But basically, it's going to get quite intense. It's going to get quite intense. And we are really being encouraged to develop an internal life, okay, more and more, because that is what will sustain us. You know, it's like everything, you know, during the war we had coal bunkers. We did have coal bunkers during the war. My granny had a coal bunker. We had bunkers. I always remember my dad telling me that there were, he was living in Glasgow during the war, and he said he remembers his father taking him out. I feel quite emotional. His father taking him out of their bunker in their back garden, and they watched as the enemy aircraft were bombing all the shipyards in Glasgow. I feel really emotional. And you know, they watched those bombings of those shipyards, which, you know, were such a lifeline to the people of Glasgow. there were so many people that really struggled after those bombings of the shipyards in Glasgow. And it was so interesting that my father talked about, witnessing the bombings there. But he then had the safety of his bunker to go back to, okay? That he could then sit in that with his mum and his dad and his sister, and they no doubt had some chocolate biscuits and some hot cups of tea. But they had safety and security while there was all this destruction and chaos going on outside. And so if you pick card number 3, you're definitely being asked to really find a safe place to go. We don't know what we're going to see out in the the outside world, in the material world. It's been really quite traumatic for so many people. I was listening to a podcast last week, and it was all about, nurses who've been on the front line, and they're so burnt out and they're so exhausted. And so many of us have had such a challenging year. And if we keep our focus on the outside, it can just crumple us. We can just feel so overwhelmed. And so, we are really being invited to develop our inner, what Teresa of Avila calls the inner interior castle. And in fact, I'm offering some work around that. I'm starting to offer some work around that. But just our interior castles, where we start to develop and strengthen our souls. So we build this deep reservoir of resilience, through something as simple as our breath. But also we're able to go into the rooms of our soul to find these really strong and powerful parts of ourselves that help us get through this sort of, this global dark night of the soul. That's taking place, that I'm seeing here, that is unfolding, that we really need to shore up our sense of self, our sense of belonging, by trusting our intuition, developing our own psychic abilities. We've all got them. I've always been very energetically sensitive, so it's always been easier for me to kind of sense and feel things, but we can all hone that muscle. It's possible for all of us, and it's as simple as tuning in to what feels right for you and shutting down the cultural narrative, just saying, what? Not interested what you've got to say. Or recognizing when that filter is on and demanding something else of you, because it will speak to you in a very different way. Your intuitive voice is much more gentle, soft, loving. That voice, that cultural overlay, that filter of you need to do this, demanding more of you, it's a patriarchal template. Does not serve us. Does not serve us. Okay? How many of us, I remember when I, as a mother of 3, but, my daughter is 25 this week. My eldest daughter is 25 this week. Yeah. I remember being, not straight back out there, but not far off it. Luckily, I had taken a house outside of New York City, and basically I escaped there. And my sister very kindly sent me her au pair, who there was this beautiful South African girl called Anne, and she came out, and I could afford it. And Simon was having to commute back into New York City every day, and I was out there in the sticks, but in this house where I had a garden. I was in an apartment in New York. I had this, house with a garden, and my mum was with me as well, and I had this really beautiful, gentle beginning to kind of motherhood where I had quite a lot of space, but it was so stressful. Even with all that, it was really stressful. And then, child number 2 arrived in London, and then, I then had another one, I had Georgia, and so then it's a bit more chaotic, and I had 2 kids. I remember pushing up Highgate Hill, and I had 2 kids in a pram. And I got to the top, and I was just like, oh my God, how am I ever going to get my body back into shape? all of that cultural stuff. I was like, that's what I was thinking about. I was exhausted. I just sat there. And the kids just sat in the play. I think George got out and had a wee play. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. I'm never going to get back into my jeans. So, you know, and then by the time I had my third, I remember, you know, day 3, I was making birthday cakes for Callie because her birthday was 3 days later. You know, birthday party. I was like, what the hell's going on here? My girlfriend Amanda Vickery, who's this historian, amazing historian, if you're in the UK, you may have seen some of her TV documentaries on particularly Jane Austen. You know, her focus is on 18th century women in the 18th century. But she talked about, I remember speaking to her about gossip, because gossip is historically women's business. It's how we talk, you know, and it's been turned into this very kind of negative connotation. Of course, there's always a shadow side, but gossip was used by women in the communities to say, she needs a bit extra help today, the kids are sick, you know, can you pick up some extra food for her? You know, we needed this sort of community spirit, which is coming back into the sisterhood, which is what I'm celebrating, but how we can all support each other. And that's what gossip was. But the name gossip came from the woman who would be looking after the mother after she'd had her baby. She would be sent into a bedroom, okay? And she would be shut in there for 4 weeks away from the rest of the family, okay? And the gossip would be looking after her. And she would then report to the rest of the family how mum and baby were doing, okay? And there was this fug that was in there because, you know, she didn't come out. She was in there with the baby. The food was brought in, you know, the bedpan was in, everything was in there. And the gossip was the woman who shared the information of what the mum and baby were up to the rest of the family and the extended family in the community. So, you know, we had that time back in the 18th century when women had this period of where they were allowed to rest, okay? And how often now is that just doesn't even seem possible after we have kids. We just seem to be, there's an expectation, we'll be up, we'll be doing the school run, we'll be back in our jeans, we'll be, you know, all the things. So I feel like we need to really develop our intuition, which is the point of what I was talking about. Develop our intuition to go, no, not doing it. It's an in-bed day. I used to regularly, let me tell you, with my kids, regularly get back into bed after lunch, after we'd done lunch, before I went in the school run and had to load everybody up in the car. I would get into bed, put Callie down for a nap. Sometimes she wouldn't actually nap in bed with me. We'd get in under the covers and I'd sleep for an hour to recharge my batteries so I could do the next shift. Okay, that's what we need to do as women. We need to nap, we need to rest, we need to trust our intuition. And so if you pick card number 3, you really are being invited to develop that. And again, I feel all of this reading this week is about developing our interior life, okay? So that we can build resilience and strength to be part of strong communities, resilient communities that are coming together in a heart-centered and empathic way to educate, to support, to develop and come up with ingenious solutions to so many of the issues that we have currently in our world. And to protect us from what's going to be, you know, becoming more prevalent in the outside world. I saw my husband, I don't watch a lot of mainstream news, but he was telling me how in the UK there are all these lawyers that are holding the government accountable for some of their behaviour. And last week I was, I donate to and support the National Justice Foundation, the National Justice Project, I think, here in Australia, group of lawyers, humanitarian lawyers, amazing, do a lot of work for the indigenous people here, for refugees, for, you know, detainees, everybody. They're on the front line working. And you know who I saw amongst them last week? I saw Jeffrey Robertson. Jeffrey Robertson is an incredible Australian humanitarian lawyer who has lived in the UK for many, many years. And he's obviously back here. Don't know if he's back here permanently. I don't know whether he's repatriated. I'm not sure. But it tells me that there's going to be some accountability for our own government here in Australia too, and about time too. Okay. So I do feel like there's a shift and a change. There's a shift and a change. Our outside world is going to be showing more of the shadow. And we need to build resilience. And that means card number 1, you're being encouraged to do some more shadow work this week. Card number 2, you've got the air and you've got the mountain, finding spaces to gain a bigger perspective, okay? A higher perspective on what's going on in your life at the moment. And I feel this all links together. And then finally, the air and water dragon, just opening up your intuition, developing your psychic abilities, and be open to enlightenment. Express your inner song, speak your truth, really speak and develop your truth. Share more of you, okay? That's it. That's all I've got. So lovely to see so many of you here. Let me see what was said. Irish Girl Glasgow. I picked number 3. You have got your message for the week then. Oh, Carla, lovely to see you. Lovely to see you too. Alicia, my daughter's 40 this week too. Oh, happy birthday. Happy birthday to your daughter, Alicia. I think she's away from you as well. She's in Argentina, isn't she? And as you know, Georgia, my daughter, is in the UK, so I don't get to be with her on her birthday, but I've sent her lots and lots of things, so she'll have lots to open on her birthday. Anyway, so lovely to see so many of you this morning on the call, sending you lots and lots of love. As I said, I have some new offerings which I will be putting on my website, but if you want to in the interim, through the link on my bio, you'll see readings and coaching. If you click on there, it just shows you, it will give you a brief description of what I'm offering in terms of oracle card readings and also some interior work using oracle cards. I'm calling it Entering the Castle, which really is a book that I read years and years ago by Caroline Myss. As you know, I love Caroline. I love her archetype cards. The Entering the Castle is basically all about the interior castle from the mystic Teresa of Avila. And so it's based on that. It's the beginning of that. It's sort of like part 1. And I've got that up on offering as well. So listen, I'll look forward to seeing you next week. And in the meantime, be well, be safe, and I'll see you soon. Lots of love.